In my past life, on the day my sister and I attended the Witch Covenant's mate selection ceremony, I saved a fallen vampire prince. Grateful for my intervention, he immediately returned to his clan and declared that I would be his future bride. A year later, I bore a pureblood heir, the only successor in the entire vampire lineage. The prince was overjoyed. On the day he was crowned regent, he sealed a blood contract with me, marking me as his eternal companion and queen. From that moment, I was revered across all races. Meanwhile, my sister chose to wed a powerful werewolf leader, only to fade into insignificance among his many lovers. Jealousy consumed her. During a full moon festival of the witches, she pushed me off a cliff, leaving me to die. When I opened my eyes again, I saw my sister running toward the spot where the vampire prince had fallen during the mate selection ceremony. She had been reborn as well, but she didn't realize that becoming the prince's bride was the easy part. Winning his heart and bearing his child was another matter entirely. A witch's power stems from desire. This was an ancient law embedded in our bloodline. Upon reaching maturity, a witch's magic grows restless, craving union with a strong partner to maintain balance. Left unchecked, it could turn against her during long, lonely nights. The Covenant elders, fearing reckless indulgence, decreed that our first task at maturity was to select suitable partners and strengthen ties with other races through marriage. That day, we had just arrived at the altar, barely able to take in the variety of potential suitors. The girl beside me leaned closer. On the way here, I saw your sister Ella running frantically toward the shadow forest. No one could stop her. Isn't she here for the ceremony? Her words hit me immediately. I wasn't the only one reborn. My sister had returned too. Her rush toward the shadow forest was likely driven by dreams of glory and wealth. Before I could respond, a fierce wind tore through the area, dark clouds gathering overhead. Night fell in an instant. Several black and gold carriages, pulled by nightmare beasts, descended from above, and vampire emissaries announced the prince's decree. My heart sank. I had been through this before. Prince Alexander had come to claim his savior as his bride. In my previous life, my sister had made things difficult, sending me into the shadow forest to gather moonflowers for her. Instead, fate led me to a man lying unconscious, ambushed by enemies. I had intended to use a witch's life energy to revive him, fulfilling my most primal desires. But when he awoke, he handed me the vampire regent's signet ring. He revealed himself as a vampire prince and, through bloodline communication, declared I would be his future companion. Our covenant had never been granted such an honor. My fate was sealed in a few words. Vampires, though lords of the night, hold many secrets. To nurture a pureblood heir, the mother must feed the fetus with her own life essence. The vampire bloodline is so potent that ordinary females of other races cannot survive. Most perish within months of pregnancy, taking both lives with them. By some miracle, I survived and bore the only pureblood heir of our generation. The vampire regent rejoiced and immediately formed an eternal blood contract with me. Decades later, when Alexander inherited the regent's position, I became his only queen, basking in endless wealth and glory. My sister, trapped in a marriage with a promiscuous werewolf leader, could never claim the status of his sole moon companion. She endured her pain daily, washing her face with tears. Finally, during a full moon festival, she lured me to a cliff and pushed me over. I will never forget that despair as I fell. Yet there, surrounded by covenant elders, Alexander appeared before everyone, holding my sister's hand with an expression full of affection. Ella is kind-hearted. She saved me in the forest. From now on, she is my chosen bride. I knelt in accordance with protocol. My sister's face shone with triumph as she surveyed the crowd. But in the shadows, hidden from her gaze, the corners of my lips curved upward. Dear sister, if you are so eager to die, I suppose I will have to grant your wish. The vampire prince's wedding far overshadowed our mate selection ceremony in importance. My sister, a few of our witch companions, and I were summoned to the Shadow Castle, strictly confined and ordered to focus entirely on preparing for my sister's pre-wedding arrangements. I touched the blood crystal necklace Alexander had sent over. Beautiful as it was, it felt like nothing more than a death talisman in my hands. In my previous life, the rewards I had received eclipsed anything my sister could ever hope for. Every action of mine had been admired and copied across the continent. Yet behind the grandeur, I alone knew the agony of bringing a child into the world. Before I could dwell further, a maid hurried over. "Miss Lila, Her Highness requests your presence." Her Highness wanted to see me? Shouldn't she be focused on her own wedding preparations? Why think of me, her insignificant sister? Despite my doubts, my sister was now Alexander's publicly acknowledged fiancée. I had no choice but to obey. Upon entering her room, I saw Alexander leaving, his shirt open, the satisfaction on his face unmistakable. I quickly lowered my gaze. He didn't even notice me. The scent lingered, the familiar mix of blood and roses that only a vampire exudes after intimacy. My sister had already claimed him. It was inevitable. Witches, upon reaching maturity, often lose control of themselves. Once they touch someone they desire, they are drawn to them irresistibly, a fatal flaw in our nature. My sister reclined on the bed, draped in a thin silk sheet that revealed more than it concealed, her smile radiating satisfaction. Upon noticing me, her expression darkened. Slowly, she pointed a finger toward the embroidery on the table. "You did this? Not bad." I dared not move. She had bullied me since childhood. Why would she suddenly praise me? And with the memory of her pushing me off a cliff in my previous life, my heart raced. Suddenly, she sat up, grabbed a silver candlestick, and hurled it at me. Blood blurred my vision as I knelt, suppressing the rage welling inside me. She seemed pleased with my reaction and spoke lazily. "I brought you here to watch how I gain everything step by step. Stop lingering near the prince, or else." I met her gaze calmly. "As you wish, Your Highness." Her shock was evident. She approached, grabbed my hair, and hissed, "Lila, do you think I don't know you've been reborn too?" Her words sparked a dark flash in my eyes. She sneered and threw the embroidery in my face. "You grew up in the Witch Forest. How could you stitch the blood rose emblem reserved for the Vampire Queen? Still daring to lie to me?" I sighed and rose, pressing my hand to my forehead. "Sister, I never sought to compete with you. I won't appear before the prince." She laughed mockingly, caressing my face. "Do you think an ugly girl like you could ever win? Even if you tried, you couldn't beat me." I said nothing. Some battles weren't worth fighting if I wished to survive. Only fools chase beautiful poison. The Blood Clan truly lived up to its legendary reputation. Even the engagement ceremony exuded grandeur. Mysterious supernatural beings attended, bringing lavish gifts to honor the clan's prestige. My sister entered in a dazzling red wedding dress, her face glowing as she grasped Alexander's hand, every eye upon her. She had finally attained the glory she had always dreamed of. Upon seeing me, she tilted her head arrogantly and silently mouthed, "Useless." Well, I was useless. But she was about to walk into her own hell. I wondered which of us was truly more pitiful. Her smile faded when Alexander handed her a goblet. "Drink this, and our engagement will be sealed under the witness of the elders." She greedily lifted the cup, ready to drain it, when a metallic scent hit her nose. She recoiled in shock. Holy silver powder. What is this doing here? Holy silver nullified witch magic. Even the most skilled wizards would be crippled by a sip. In my previous life, I endured the same ordeal without protest, knowing my life meant nothing compared to the clan's honor. My sister, oblivious, pouted and leaned into Alexander, refusing to drink. "I won't. I hate this." Alexander, patient despite the audience, reminded her, "Ella, this is an ancient Blood Clan tradition. Do not defy it in front of everyone." But she ignored him. "I despise this stupid ritual. Witches hate holy silver. I will never submit." Her words insulted the clan's elders, who saw drinking the bane as a sign of loyalty. Complaints whispered among the nobles, even questioning Alexander's judgment. Finally, Alexander's patience snapped. His voice carried icy authority. "One more time, drink it." Terrified, my sister gulped down the cup, but the damage was done. The mood of the ceremony soured. Alexander left immediately, not sparing her a glance. My sister, stunned, couldn't understand how yesterday's affection could vanish over a single cup of wine. I let out a cold laugh. She was far too naive. In the eyes of the Blood Clan, nothing mattered more than dignity. A bride meant only to adorn the prince could never think to control him. This was just the beginning of her good days. After my sister's engagement ceremony, the small scandal of the day quickly rippled through the castle. On the surface, everyone remained polite, but behind closed doors, Whispers spread about how the marriage had been a mistake from the start. The prince felt no genuine affection for his new bride. Alexander had lost face that day, and there was no way he would visit my sister anytime soon. Yet, how could a newly awakened witch endure sleeping alone? My sister would have to handle that herself. I had no desire to mock her, though. The mate selection ceremony had been interrupted, but my own body demanded release. I had planned to wait until we returned to the Witch Covenant to find a random companion, yet that night, my magic surged too strongly to control. I slipped into the castle garden, where my power unexpectedly pinned a man passing by to the ground. Once I had tasted him, I couldn't let go. I only left at dawn. His dark eyes bored into mine. "You've got some nerve, sleeping with me without even knowing who I am?" I ignored him, dressing quickly. This was consensual. Consider it my way of saying thanks. He tried to speak further, but I had already vanished, leaving only the chaos of our encounter behind. Returning to the palace, I was about to rest when muffled panting drifted from my sister's room. I rolled over irritably. Had Alexander finally come for her? My sister really acted like she had never known a man. The girl sharing my room muttered in annoyance. "She's far too brazen. Where's even a hint of a future princess? She's embarrassing us." I closed my eyes but suddenly sat up, recalling the Blood Clan's customs. It was the new moon night, meaning the prince should have left long ago to attend the Council of Elders. Then who was in my sister's room? A chill ran down my spine. My sister was bold, but surely she wasn't foolish enough to commit such a reckless act. She had always cherished the memories of our past life. After I bore the prince's only son, my position was secure as the true queen. She thought herself superior and believed she could succeed where I had. But Alexander wasn't in her room, so how could she possibly conceive? She was trying to get pregnant by another man. Insane. If this secret leaked, it would implicate the entire Witch Covenant. I swallowed my shock and turned over. This was her path, and she alone would face the consequences. It had nothing to do with me. I tried to sleep, but my stomach churned violently, as if something was stirring within. Touching it, the sensation calmed. I assumed I had eaten something bad, yet a premonition from my previous pregnancy gnawed at me. The face of the man from earlier floated through my mind. Could it be? I shook my head. Too much coincidence. By then, the child in my womb had begun to grow. My sister, too, had already conceived. The prince never questioned her claims, confident in the result. After showering her with gold, silver, and jewels, she had her moment of triumph. She summoned me to her room, flaunting the treasures. "Look at this. You could spend your whole life and never achieve such wealth. Even if you were reborn, you'll never compare to me." I nodded politely, my mind preoccupied with the child in my womb. The man I had encountered in the castle might have been vampiric as well. Memories of my previous pregnancy, the relentless morning sickness, the pain, the constant stretching within my belly, haunted me. Witches cannot easily terminate a pregnancy. It would devastate their magical essence. I had no choice but to accept it. Perhaps this child was a gift from fate. My sister misread my silence as envy, growing smug. "Perfect timing, you're here and I'm pregnant, but have no appetite. Go make me some pomegranate juice." I bit my lip. Pomegranate juice seemed ordinary, but my sister was allergic, a secret only we knew. If I prepared it, Alexander's obsession with her child could make him furious, possibly putting my life at risk. If I refused, she would accuse me of jealousy, and I would face punishment. Now, carrying a child myself, I had to think of the baby. I looked up at her calmly. "Pomegranate isn't good for vampire offspring. I have an ancient potion that promotes the child's growth. Don't you want him born quickly so your status as princess consort is secure?" She scrutinized me, narrowing her eyes, clearly assessing my honesty. Cold sweat broke out on my forehead, but finally she nodded. "You'd better not harm royal blood, or I'll have the prince flay you alive." Relieved, I retreated. The foolish woman believed me. Just then, the vampire physician checking her pulse hurried past. The voice sent a chill through me. He was the same man from the garden that night. My sister had arranged her lover, so close to herself. Had she no fear of being discovered? I snorted coldly, gathering my things, when a voice called from behind. "Leaving so quickly. Are you afraid of running into me?" That voice stirred a flood of memories, and I instinctively recoiled. Who else could it be but him? A smile played across his face, as though I were some harmless creature. I rushed forward, clamping my hand over his mouth, urgency in my voice. What do you think you're doing? Have you lost your mind? This is a vampire castle. If you're discovered, you'll be dead.
He didn't resist.
His gaze softened as he looked at me. Then why are you here? Looking for death. I scrutinized him, ensuring there was no one like him in the castle in my previous life. Satisfied, I pulled him along, speaking casually. The prince's fiancé has a poor appetite and asked me to prepare something for her. Otherwise, I wouldn't be wandering here. The vampire castle has rules. One wrong step, and you'll be torn apart, he said. I exhaled deeply. The glamorous life others envied was a gilded cage, and I felt trapped. He patted my head in comfort. If you want, I can take you away from here. I smiled bitterly, treating it as a joke. My only concern was the child in my womb. Whether he knew or not didn't matter. Witches often raise children alone. The child kicked lightly, softer than in my previous life, as if merely playing. I instinctively caressed my belly, a small smile forming. Children often take after their fathers. A child of Alexander, proud and selfish, would surely be demanding. But perhaps this one might be more considerate than before. As he walked me back, he tugged my wrist, about to speak. The moment he touched me, his expression froze. Confused, I glanced down. Nothing seemed amiss. Then he asked, his voice tense, "The child in your belly, is it mine?" I froze. How could he know? I realized then, when he had touched me, he had instinctively sensed the flow of my life force, something only a top-tier spellcaster or someone with a powerful bloodline could detect. One touch, and he knew. He opened and closed his mouth repeatedly, then lowered his gaze to my barely showing belly. Nervousness and excitement flickered in his eyes, someone on the brink of fatherhood. I shook my head instinctively. No, this child isn't yours. It has nothing to do with you, but my stammering words betrayed me. Even his ears turned red. I couldn't help laughing at his innocence. He coughed to cover it. I'll take responsibility for you, I promise. I treated it as a joke and pushed the door open. Sure, you'll marry me and we'll run away to the ends of the earth with a child? Even as I said it, I knew such a life would be harsh. Yet he pressed an ancient crest-bearing ring into my hand. Keep this. I will come back for you. Meanwhile, my sister's belly had grown unnaturally large, yet she became increasingly gaunt. Still, she was enthralled, convinced her child would be a strong vampire heir. She stroked her belly daily, talking to it. Baby, make mommy proud. Once you're born, the queen's position will be mine, and no one will ever dare look down on us again. She increased her dosage of my secret formula from once to 3 times daily, believing it would strengthen her child. In reality, it agitated the fetus, causing her immense pain, writhing on the bed, drenched in sweat. Yet she insisted the agony was a sign of the child's vitality. At only 5 months, she boasted to everyone that she would soon give birth to a pure-blood heir. Her arrogance left her no escape. My own belly could no longer be concealed, yet she looked at me with contempt. With your lowly origins, your child will be nothing but trash. How could it compare to my son? I will be queen someday. You'll never measure up, even in death. But before she could revel in triumph, the child in her womb tortured her further. She had no idea the miracle cure I gave her was actually a fetal stimulant, making her child restless and violent. Her delicate witch body was already being torn apart from within. In my previous life, I only became emaciated near labor, but she, at 5 months, was already skeletal. One day, she glimpsed herself in a mirror. The sight made her scream, shattering the glass. The reflection revealed a sallow, gaunt woman, hair falling in clumps, a dying figure rather than the proud young maiden she once was. No wonder Alexander visited her less and less. Clutching her hair, she whispered, "It doesn't matter. Once this child is born, I'll recover and be beautiful again. The prince will fall in love with me. An heir means everything." Watching her spiral into mania, I shook my head. When I was pregnant, I concealed myself to avoid such exposure. She only saw wealth and prestige. She had no idea the suffering I endured privately. This was only the beginning. Her child would likely be enormous at birth. For witches, forcing the body to bear such children was akin to walking through death's door. I could only wonder how she would react when her child did not meet her lofty expectations. How deliciously ironic. The day my sister went into labor, the vampire elders filled the room, leaving no space unguarded. She had boasted to everyone that she was about to deliver a pure-blood heir, and now the entire clan had gathered to witness it. Even the reclusive Prince Alexander had come in person. He paced outside the hall, anxious to rush in and oversee the birth himself. Everyone else rubbed their hands together, eager to greet the next generation of the vampire clan. My sister's cries grew louder, then gradually faded into silence. Her body was too weak. The birth of a vampire heir was akin to being reborn. I had fainted multiple times during my own previous labor, so I understood the ordeal. The sounds from her room continued throughout the day, until the blood-red sunset finally gave way to the newborn's first cries. Joy spread across the elders' faces. This was the first royal heir born to the vampire clan in generations, destined to become the next successor. As everyone waited, the midwife emerged, clutching a tiny bundle. The sheer number of onlookers overwhelmed her, and she dropped to her knees with a thud, panic flashing in her eyes. Prince Alexander stepped forward, laughing with delight, eager to unwrap the child. Good. Finally. The grandson I've waited for has arrived. Our clan has a successor. But the moment he saw the child clearly, his expression changed dramatically. He leaned closer, following the gaze of the elders, and erupted in fury. How can he have blue eyes? My son with blue eyes. Silence fell instantly. Everyone exchanged uneasy glances, afraid to speak. Royal vampire descendants, male or female, were born with crimson eyes. This had been an unbroken rule for millennia. Branch families and mixed-blood vampires might have other eye colors, but never royalty. Now, the prince's fiancée had given birth to a blue-eyed child, a glaring signal of betrayal. Enraged by the shocked, judgmental gazes around him, the prince lifted the infant violently and threw it to the ground, killing it instantly. The scene was gruesome. Even I flinched. Inside the delivery room, my sister, still unaware, weakly called, "Your Highness, how is our child? Isn't he adorable? Please, let me see." Her words only intensified the prince's wrath. He stormed in, sword in hand, leaving no room for negotiation. I followed quickly, prepared to intervene if she tried to escape. The delivery room smelled of blood. My sister's body was skeletal, her beauty gone, replaced with the horrifying pallor of death. Blood continued to flow from her lower body, and a massive wound on her stomach revealed the child had clawed its way out alive. She shyly turned to the prince, trying to feign triumph. "Now that I've given birth to your only son, how do you intend to reward me?" The prince sneered, pointing his sword at her. "Slut. You'll join that bastard in hell immediately." There was no time to dodge. The blade carved flesh from her shoulder, and she collapsed onto the bed. Bloodshot eyes glared at him as she cried, "Why are you doing this? I nearly died giving birth to your child. You want to kill me?" Alexander laughed bitterly. "My child? Don't you know all royal descendants have crimson eyes? There's never been a blue-eyed one. How dare you betray me?" She cowered, terrified. Only when she noticed me standing behind him, smirking, did realization dawn. "It's you. You're behind this." I waved my hand calmly. "Sister, you're blaming me for your own mistakes. Even divine powers couldn't change the child's eye color. You alone have brought shame upon our witch covenant." Her face drained of color. She had endured the pain of pregnancy, only for her hopes to collapse before all witnesses. Kneeling, she pleaded, "For the sake of our past, please spare me." But the prince felt no pity for this haggard, withered version of the sister he once knew. He commanded his attendants to drag her to the dungeon for punishment. Her screams echoed, but no one intervened. I finally exhaled in relief, but the prince turned to me with suspicion. "Why do you seem so familiar?" My blood ran cold. Memories from my previous life raced through my mind. Before I could answer, a man's voice called from behind. "Because she's my future wife." It was him, the father of the child in my womb. The prince's face darkened. "Brother? When did you return?" The man strode over, taking my hand. "I came back when I chose. We can talk another time. Today isn't for catching up." Ignoring Alexander's fury, he pulled me away. Even I, foolish as I might be, sensed his extraordinary presence. I looked into his eyes, demanding, "Who are you?" He shrugged. "Your attitude breaks my heart. My name is King. You should know, the current princess consort isn't the original wife. My mother was, but she died giving birth to me. Father thought I was unlucky and sent me to the human world. I returned rarely, but when your sister got engaged, I unexpectedly met you. He coughed to mask his embarrassment. I was stunned by the revelation. In my previous life, I had heard of this disfavored eldest prince, but never imagined he would become entwined with me. Suddenly, sharp cramps shot through my belly. I gripped his arm tightly. Oh no, I'm going into labor. This child had been extraordinarily well-behaved from the start. During my pregnancy, he caused no trouble, and the delivery went so smoothly it felt unreal, almost like a dream. Seeing him wrapped in a red aura, his blood-colored eyes gleaming, I could hardly believe he was truly mine. From the moment he was born, Cain's face never left its smile. He had wandered through life for so long, never daring to hope for a wife or child, yet now everything he had wished for had finally come true. News of my giving birth to a pure-blooded heir spread instantly throughout the vampire clan. This time, the child represented a legitimate royal bloodline. When the prince came to visit, he could not hide his grin. At this moment, father and son, bound by years of resentment, finally reconciled. As for Prince Alex, he was deeply affected. He often drowned his sorrows in alcohol, creating endless troubles. Eventually, after attempting to force himself on a noble lady, he incurred the wrath of the prince and had his inheritance stripped. He blamed his failures to produce an heir, became obsessed with women, and his health deteriorated rapidly, leaving him bedridden at a young age. My sister, I later found in the dungeon. She was chained with runic iron, her body covered in wounds. Skeletal and frail, she was barely recognizable. Seeing me in the finery of the future queen, her eyes filled with rage.
Why?
Even after being reborn, it's the same outcome. I'm better than you in every way. Why do I always lose? She refused to accept her fate. Suddenly, she knelt before me, tears streaming down her face. Sister, I know I was wrong. I endure a fate worse than death every day. Please save me. I promise I'll turn over a new leaf. But I could see no genuine remorse in her. I shook my head gently. You chose this path yourself. I warned you that being the prince's bride would be perilous, but you went ahead and harmed both yourself and that newborn child. She refused to listen. Seeing my refusal, her expression twisted with fury, and she lunged at me. Since I've lost again, then you'll go to hell with me. Next life, I'll win. I was ready. Her previous tricks would no longer work. The guards pinned her to the ground. Her wounds reopened, blood spreading across the floor. I touched the hair ornament on my head and said calmly, since she shows no true remorse, keeping her alive serves no purpose. Kill her. Power is a strange thing. A single word decides life or death. Her screams and wails meant nothing. In a flash of blades, her head was severed, rolling a few times before coming to rest. She died with eyes wide open, seemingly unable to understand why she had lost once again. I took the handkerchief a maid handed me, wiped my hands, and left the sunless prison. Outside, Cain stood in the sunlight, holding our month-old son, smiling as he waited. Everything was finally over. This time, there would be no more complications.